Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Hen Outdoors podcast. I'm excited to have with us tonight Mr. Ian McCreary. I hope I'm saying that right. Um,
Yep.
the wild, the Wild West Trout Wrangler from Wyoming. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Can't complain. It's the start of a good week, so where we're at. How's your week starting off?
Pretty good. I'm hoping to go fishing this Wednesday. Our rivers finally came up from just kind of the summer drought, so
Okay,
should have a good chance to go get the raft out one more time before rivers freeze over.
awesome. Let's start off how I usually start every episode off. How did you get your start in the outdoors and fishing?
um, I probably just grew up fishing from a young age. My family owns a little cabin off the Nehalem River in Oregon, and
Okay.
as far as I can remember, we'd go out there for weekends in the summer and the falls and spring, and it was right on the Nehalem River. So you'd walk down the hill. There's a small dock
Hmm.
I could fish off of, and then from there, I just always loved fishing. And I think it was about fourth or fifth grade. My family did a trip up to Alaska, and we rafted the Golcana River, and
Oh
it was
wow.
a 3 day trip we did,
Hmm.
3 or 4 nights, and that really just solidified the passion for fishing and love for fishing. Every cast, you're catching a fish. We didn't catch huge fish. I mean, just throwing a zero meps or one meps, and
Hmm.
color didn't matter. There's so many fish up there, but like it just really instilled a love for fishing for me. And then through high school and college, I just fished as much as I could and got more into steelhead salmon while living in the Pacific Northwest. And then about the time I went to grad school at CSU, that's when I decided to take the plunge into fly fishing. My dad tried all the time. You should try fly fishing. You should try fly fishing. Never pushed it, just like encouraged me to do it. And I finally decided I would try fly fishing, getting into it. And so that summer, I picked up a rod and started casting. And then before I moved or moved down south to, that's, before I moved to the Rockies, pretty much, I had one more trip up to Alaska with some buddies, and I was able to catch some sockeye and trout on a fly rod, and that just that's pretty much been it for me. I don't think I've really picked up a conventional rod since. I mean, there's a huge practicality for conventional fishing, though.
Oh yeah. And that's how usually everybody starts out is conventional fishing, and then they branch off into their
Yeah.
quote unquote niche. So, what's the trout scene like out west? I'm not too familiar with it. I know there's a lot of rivers and raft
So,
floating.
yeah, floating by from raft or drift boat, it's pretty popular, I would say, here in Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Idaho. Uh, Real big scene as far as like accessing rivers via float. I think part of that reason is just that there's so much more access you have.
Hmm.
Um, in Wyoming, Colorado, and I'm pretty sure Idaho as well, uh, your river access is restricted to public land use. Waters that are navigable, you can float through some private property, but you can't anchor.
Hmm.
Montana has a unique downwater law, which allows you to access from the high water mark. So that makes a lot of rivers. So as long as you access from public land and remain on the high water mark in Montana, you can wade pretty much all the rivers there.
Oh wow.
But most of the other states, basically surrounding it, have that downwater law, which means you can't anchor. So there's tons of river, especially by me, like our public access. You can float 4 to 8 miles, depending on like your flows and how long you want to float, before you get to another public pullout, and that just opens up so much more water that you can access that you legally would not be able to wade. The
Right.
tricky thing, yeah, and the tricky thing is with that, you still have to make sure you don't anchor on private land because otherwise you are trespassing when your anchor is touching the riverbed.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, I still think there's a pretty big wade community here too. Owning a boat, my boat cost 5 grand. Scouring, scouring Facebook until I found a deal.
Uh huh.
I had a model and a brand and a setup I wanted. I found it. A guy in Eagle hadn't used it in a couple years. He had set it up for guiding down there, used it for his family boat for a while, and he was like, "We haven't been out in a while." And I think I responded to him within 15 minutes of him posting it. And was able to go down there and pick it up. So like that's kind of how I got that my rafts. Probably got to save up some more to get a drift boat here soon, but still a huge community as far as folks that just access the rivers by wading. Um, like a section of the Platte that I like to do is the Miracle Mile, and like a lot of people like to float it. I think it opens up a lot. I prefer to wade it. I know most of the back roads and the access points and how far I need to walk to get to most of the specific fishing spots. A guide would probably tell me I'm crazy and like I could catch way more fish if I floated it more often. But I have pretty good success over there in that stretch of water just wading it. So like there's still a great opportunity to wade. And when I was living in Walden, which is in Colorado, in Jackson, I would fish the Delaney Buttes, and
Okay.
those are a string of 3 lakes, and those are all really productive. And I didn't have a boat for the longest time for that. Once I did get a boat to go on a river for that, which I've sold since, I was like, man, I really should have had a boat this whole time because it's so much easier to fish and move around those lakes with a outboard.
Oh yeah. Do you find it difficult to be out? I mean, I assume you have somebody with you when you're on the boat, or do you operate it by yourself sometimes? Like,
Most of our waters, because I can't anchor, I typically I just go with someone else.
mhm.
So always looking for that person that wants to go fish for the day or wants to go get out. If I don't find someone, what I'll typically do is I'll opt to wade. I live pretty remote. I live in a small town called Encampment, Wyoming. So kind of 400 people. From here, like I can get to the Encampment River. I can go up to the campground, and that's 10 minutes away from my house. I can
Mhm.
go to like another stretch on the Encampment River, and that's probably about 15 minutes from my house. And then I have access to the North Platte, which is with is also within 15 minutes. So like
Oh wow.
even if I don't go on a raft, I have quick access to just do a quick wade trip, depending on where I want to go.
Oh yeah. Now, as far as species, the freshwater trout and all that's well, fly fishing in general is kind of new to me. And I'm
Yeah,
over on the East Coast, which we talked before a little bit, and salt's kind of been more in my wheelhouse starting out than the freshwater. So, what kind of species and all those kind of good stuff do you have out there? I mean, I know there's probably I assume cutthroats and browns and those
yeah,
good ones.
yeah. Cutthroat trout. Wyoming has 4 species. Actually, I just got back from a trip like 2 weeks ago. I went and chased to try to catch the cut slam in Wyoming. Fell one species short. So I got to go back up to Du Bois or Thermopolis and go try to get my Yellowstone cutthroat. So we have 4 species in this state. I think Colorado has 2 or 3. Someone would have to fact check me on that. Utah also has like a cut slam. So there's different species of cutthroat. We have rainbow trout, brown trout, brook trout, uh, grayling, white mountain whitefish. A lot of people don't like to target them specifically. Personally, for me, if like I did a trip up to Montana once, and all we caught were mountain whitefish, but it was
Hmm.
a ton of fun. So like it didn't ruin the trip that we were just catching whitefish on dry
Hmm.
flies. And like our game and fish, like especially down like in Casper and like in the plains on the front range of like the Rockies, on both I would say Wyoming and Colorado. There's like plenty of warm water species like smallmouth, largemouth that get stocked, catfish. Um, uh, and I know there's also like you can find pike and muskie that get
Oh,
stocked in
really?
some
Wow.
lakes too. Yep. Um, I haven't tried it in the mountains and the Rockies yet, but I do go out to Wisconsin as much as I can and try to catch muskie and pike.
Cool. What's that like catching muskie and pike on the fly? Is it just as hard as, or like the same amount of challenge as conventional? Like you gotta do the figure eights and everything, or is it you think it's a little harder?
It's pretty much the same. You're just finding that. Yeah, you're just finding that structure where a pike or muskie should be. I have not caught my muskie yet. I've definitely had muskie eat flies completely off when I was trying to catch a smallmouth.
Mhm.
So undergun and underprepared for a pike or for a muskie to swipe at a fly, but so I've had opportunities, but not the right gear.
Right.
But yeah, it's all the same. You're looking for the same kind of structure, and then just kind of utilizing the proper fly for the situation.
Mhm. What would you say is one of your favorite species to go after on fly?
Oh man, smallmouth have like really, I would say, taken a forefront. Of course, I love trout. If I was going to go for trout, I love chasing big browns. This is
Hmm.
about the time of year finding those browns that are working to migrate towards reds. So if you find a spawning ground, you can go downstream and find where they're staging to get up to the spawning reds, and that's always fun. Going up to the Miracle Mile like this time right now, those fish should be moving into the river system from the lake. And they're not spawning yet, so like you can kind of it's fishing for spawning fish is kind of like, is it should you not? I figure if you're trying to target them before they get to the reds, you should be fine ethically, but I think everyone takes a different moral stance on that. um,
Hmm.
but yeah, brown trout for sure, probably my top fish I like to chase. But then smallmouth, I started catching those a couple years ago, going out to Wisconsin with my wife and her family, and that's one fish that fights hard.
Oh yeah, I've caught them like once or twice, and I think New Hampshire and Maine. We stayed on a lake that bordered both of them, and I caught them on convention. I was like, oh, these
Yeah,
guys
they're
got some
such a
fight to
hard
them.
fighting. Yeah, they're a hard
Oh
fighting
yeah,
fish too, pound for
oh
pound.
yeah,
Like they fight hard and they're fun, and they have
uh,
aggressive eats.
oh yeah, and I feel like they're also underrated too because largemouth get more of the shine or other bass species around. They're not kind of just like, yeah, smallmouth. It's kind of like a niche thing almost.
It is. I don't. Whenever I've caught largemouth, I would catch them in the city pond in Fort Collins, and whenever I caught them, they hit hard, and then they just like I just pulled them in. They didn't really fight hard. I mean, I was probably not fishing for a largemouth like that down in Texas.
Hmm.
Those probably fight pretty hard because they get big, but like, or there's even down south. So at one point, I need to get to the south and try to catch catch a largemouth that's probably is going to fight harder than what I've caught in like a city pond in Fort Collins.
Oh yeah. What's it like? I mean, being in Wyoming, not saying it's the most temperable area, but you have the winters are very harsh, and then you have your spring and summertime is quote unquote very limited in some of those western states. How do you guide fishing those kind of times when it freezes and if it does freeze?
I don't guide anymore, but a lot of guides do shut down as far as like operations go. And then other guides that try to stay operational all year will chase tailwaters. Tailwaters, those systems basically like in the wintertime, the warmest water flips to the bottom of the lake, and the coldest water is
Hmm.
on top when it's frozen. But when it spills out, you have that warm water going through the entire system. So those stay unfrozen year round. So like for me, if I were to go catch a fish, I'll just head up, to a tailwater section, or yeah, or find a river system that doesn't freeze.
Hmm. Even when it gets so cold out there, like into the negatives and teens, the tailwaters still stay open.
Yep.
Oh wow. Hmm. Do they do they like go down in temperature, or they kind of stay consistent with the flowing water?
They'll stay consistent with that flowing water.
Oh wow.
But usually, like when the lake makes its flip, it's usually about probably like 37 to 38 degrees. So just above freezing. Like the fish are still pretty lethargic,
Hmm.
like they would be in the lake system. But because there's still flowing water, you have access to aquatic hatches. So like, still gonna cast like small midges and maybe blue wing olives once it gets a little bit warm
Hmm.
near the tail end of the winter. But the fish still choose to eat, but a lot less likely.
Right. On the topic of getting the fish to eat, what's it like as far as trying to match fly? Actually, I know it's a big thing, matching the hatch and trout fishing with flies, and trying to figure that what should I throw at them at?
Yeah. it's a challenge. I think like the hardest part once you get into it, there's a million fly patterns. Like you could go to a fly shop or even go online to an online store if you don't have one accessible to you, and you're gonna see probably thousands of flies that are offered between dry flies, nymphs, streamers. I think that's like the best way to categorize it. So streamers are going to be like what a conventional angler is throwing with a rapala or rooster tail or any other form of like rattler for bass.
Mm-hmm.
Your streamer is basically going to imitate a small bait fish or some sort of small prey. So that's going to be kind of more towards your conventional fishing as far as throwing something to get a predatory fish to eat, something that's larger and darting across the river system. Whether it's you can dead drift it, it could look like it's just a wounded fish. You could strip it in, and then you get into the nymphs, and then you get into your dry flies. So the nymphs are basically the aquatic, the young stage of a dry fly or of a flying insect that grows up in the river system. So, and then the easy way to break it down is there's four classes of aquatic insects. There's probably more, but the four main ones are going to be your caddisflies, your mayflies, your stoneflies, and then you have midges. So midges, they're real small. So like that's kind of where like that zebra midge or really tiny like size 18 to 20 fly comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're gonna, they have an incomplete metamorphosis. If I want to get really nerdy on it. So they basically go from a nymph and then they pop their wing casing and float to the top, and that's the emergent stage. Once they emerge, so then they're kind of like stuck in the surface film. Once they emerge, they're wing adults and they're flying around, and then fish will eat those pretty much. Once they're either emerging and trying to come off the water, or they come back to lay their eggs.
Okay.
And then once they lay their eggs, they die, and then you'll have a spinner fall,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where fish will eat those too. And then caddisflies, they're the only ones that really have their complete metamorphosis. So they go from like a nymph, or I guess from an egg, to like their pupa stage to now I'm forgetting the fourth stage. But they go through like 4 stages, and then you can have fly patterns that mimic those 4 stages. The egg's really tiny; that doesn't really count. They're like specks of grain or specks of sand. A fish wouldn't eat those, but they'll go from that larval stage to their pupa stage to their winged adult stage. So you can fish for those in the same thing. They'll emerge, they'll dry off on the surface film, and then fly off and come back to lay their eggs. And fish will kind of target those flies then. And then mayflies, same thing. They turn into a nymph, they emerge, and then their emergent stage, which is really just pretty much them being a winged adult coming out of the water. And stoneflies, probably my favorite insect for sure. They have their nymph stage, and they crawl out of the water, and then they become adults, and then they come back to lay their eggs, and then die. But they're really bad flyers, so like that's when you see like salmon flies or yellow stoneflies on the water. If you're in the Mountain West and you see a salmon fly hatch or a stonefly hatch, they look like small birds flying around. They're so big. Like they're, they can get between like 2 to 3 inches long for like the largest ones.
Mm-hmm.
But so matching the hatch, typically what you're doing is anything that's in the water, the river system, kind of most nymphs are fair game to like throw any sort of nymph pattern. Fish will start keying in on maybe an emergence of a certain type of fly at the height of the season. But typically, like, my waters, like I can get away with throwing a stonefly pattern and a caddis pupa and then some sort of like emerger. A lot of the time that's going to work on a daily basis. Then once fish start keying in on something, like we're just getting over our trico hatch. Once fish start keying on those tricos, which is the smallest mayfly, you're kind of stuck. You've got to get the trico patterns, and if you want to catch fish, those fish are just zeroed in on it. Right. So usually when there's blanket hatches or large hatches, then that's where like matching the hatch mainly is for dry fly. So what's active on top of the water and what are fish eating that's floating on the water or coming back to the water.
Mm-hmm. With freshwater fly fishing, do you guys have do you have like kind of like a set go-to 5 or 6 flies you would say, hey, if I take these, I know I can just throw one of these at any time and catch? Or is it kind of just more like meticulous in what you guys are looking
Um,
for?
yeah, there's tons of lists online. They're all roughly the same. Tom Rosenbauer has one called the Dirty Dozen. He's from the Orbis Fly Fishing Podcast, so he's Father Tom. Everyone, like every person in the fly fishing industry, at one point in time, will come across all the work his body of work and be like, okay, this guy knows just about everything or everyone in relation to fly fishing. So he's kind of, in a good respect, the godfather of fly fishing for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
he has a list, and lots of other people have like come up with either similar lists or their own dirty dozen. And typically, those 12 flies, they're pretty much destined to work on pretty much any river, at least in the U.S. Or any
Hmm.
Western streams for sure. Back east, there's probably going to be a little bit of change when you start looking into like some of the like back east. You guys have more sulfurs than we had than drakes, I believe.
Hmm.
So like some of those will be some varying changes, but probably some of the ones that are always going to be on those lists is a woolly bugger, which is a small streamer. Um, Probably an elk hair caddis because it's pretty universal. Um, One, it imitates a caddis pattern for sure, but then it also uh, can work. Like I've done it in Montana where you get oversized elk hair caddis and they work as spruce moths. So it can be a pretty universal fly. Uh, Parachute Adams like looks like a mayfly, I guess, for the most part. Uh, More of an imitation, but it does the same thing. You can get those in
Hmm.
different sizes and shapes and colors. As far as that goes, some people might sub that for a purple haze. Um, Probably the next one would be probably the San Juan worm or squirmy worm. Would be imitate that aneliid pattern of a river worm in a system. And
Hmm.
then probably I'd say the Prince Nymph or Frenchie would be that fifth fly. And then I think there are probably some varying difference. Like in the West, people would say Pat's rubber leg for your stonefly pattern, um, maybe a Prince Nymph, and then probably a chubby Chernobyl or a stimulator would be those large attractors. And then there's probably a few random different nymph sizes, like a zebra midge and then a brassy, which
Hmm.
would be like the flies for your caddis pupa, and then um, imitate your midge, your small midges.
Right. That's cool that you guys have that kind of like dirty dozen or those 5 mains because, like I said, I'm kind of just starting out into the whole fly fishing world and everything. And I was more geared because of where I'm at towards salt. And I always thought it was cool that those guys just said, hey, as long as you have like a crab or a shrimp or a minnow of some kind or like a gurgle, like a topwater gurgler or something, if you have like those 4 or 5 flies, you'll be straight. Just don't matter what color. You just got
Yep.
to figure it out. And I think that's kind of cool that it reciprocates back to freshwater almost. When some people
Yeah.
think that it's more technical and you gotta have all these different kinds of flies and you gotta do this and all that, match this and make sure you have all these things covered.
Yeah. It's pretty. I mean, definitely you can get into more technical water or technical areas, and like there's going to be a specific fly people choose to use. But yeah, there's you can go super simple as far as like some basic classic flies. Pretty much most of what those are
Mhm.
catch fish. What do you fish for in the salt?
Some stripers, some bluefish. Um, Occasionally I'll try to work a flounder if I see one. Um, I haven't yet, but I want to try to get on some redfish down at the bottom of the Chesapeake or Delaware bays. Either one, they both come up to that bottom point of the bays there.
Okay, yeah, redfish have been like my saltwater intro, and I haven't caught a lot, but they're a ton of fun to target.
Oh yeah, I've been talking to a couple guys from like down in Florida and South Carolina on here, and they're like, "Dude, there's nothing like catching redfish." I'm like, huh.
It's fun. Yeah, last time I was at in Florida, I went to Mosquito Lagoon and had a guide, and just super awesome to be down there and like we're in the flat and we're looking for tailing fish, and it's so it's like hunting. I don't hunt,
Hmm.
but I mean you're You're looking for a fish, you're looking for that movement, and then you're trying to get your fly over to them. I caught probably two small ones when I was there,
Mm-hmm.
and then last time I was in New Orleans, we fished for redfish, and it was all blown out and off color. We were in November. I thought it was gonna be a little bit better than it was, but I think like December, January is the best time to go down there in Louisiana. It's after the rainy season from the
Oh yeah.
fall. But the one fly I had, and I didn't have any more black flies. I hooked one big bull red, and the guide I got was more of a conventional fishing, so he was not set up for me to be fly fishing necessarily. So we had a
Mm-hmm.
power pull down, and this fish zips around and gets on the power pull and breaks me off. But it was probably a good 2 foot plus redfish.
Damn. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up. That red fishing is kind of like hunting as well, as far as like the spotting and sighting for them. That's kind of been one of the main entries that I've had to go for redfish because I myself, and we've talked, I'm a hunter and spot stalks on. I'm like, that's just kind of like it all makes all the roads kind of come together at some point.
Yep, and it's on my list. I'd like to do it probably next year. It's probably getting too cold. Carp. That's kind of the big fish that
Hmm.
freshwater anglers kind of compared to what is huge fly fisherman call them? I think he calls them like freshwater bonefish, but you're looking for, or I guess freshwater redfish. You can get on a boat. There's a guide up in Casper, Wyoming that does it out of Ugly Bug Fly Shop. They have same thing like you would have on the salt flats with a pole. They go poling for them and they look for carp that are mudding in flats.
Hmm.
Same
I
thing.
never heard that about carp.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next. I think not. I guess it's probably the next kind of big species that people are looking to target just because they get huge.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny that like people are trying to target them now because before they were such a eh, fish, you know. Because
Yep.
like yeah, carp.
This was years ago. The fly fishing film tour had like a mini film. It was like a cartoon film from a. It talked about the history of the carp. Um, it's kind of interesting, just like how it got not one. It was brought over here from Europe, I believe, and for a long time it was a cuisine based fish, and then I think kind of after our industrial era, people started seeing like these carp surviving and thriving in real brackish water, like behind waste stations,
Hmm.
where people are just dumping in a lot of pollutant. They're just a pretty hardy fish, but I think that basically turned everyone's thoughts thinking that carp are just trash fish.
Oh yeah. When they're actually in actuality, there's no such thing as a trash fish in my opinion. It's just trash cooks that cook them. But that's either here nor there.
That's true. There's a huge push too. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a chef that's an angler. I think he just does conventional fishing out of Hawaii, and he's like kind of big on this forefront that like just what you said. Trash fish aren't trash fish. It just there are no such thing as trash fish, and we should be targeting these fish that are that are deemed as not as good or worthy. They taste just
Hmm.
as good, but that would help, like, and it would helps reduce pressure on what we consider like good game fish or good eating fish.
Hmm. Hey man, I was always told if you get the grease hot enough and season it well enough, it all tastes good. So,
Yep.
but no, back on a little track here. So as far as tying flies, what's your kind of process for like tying? If you do tie flies, what's what's that
Yeah.
like for you?
For me, I haven't tied in a little bit. It's now getting cold, so I'll start getting my vise out. Typically, what I do is I tie flies in batches. So I try to tie about a dozen flies at a time with the same pattern.
Okay.
My friend thinks I'm crazy for doing it, but I end up just filling small like compartment boxes. They're all in the back. Oh, here's kind of one of them. Like these kind of like compartment boxes.
Hmm.
That's not the one I usually fill with, but I try to fill those with this different sizes of the flies that I'm tying that I use regularly. But yeah, most of my tying I do like I guess I try to mass produce them. Usually by the end of the night, I get pretty bored of tying the same fly, but then I'm like, oh, I got like a dozen or so of this pattern already, so good to go. I'm done doing that for a little bit.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Do you have like a specific pattern or material you like to tie?
I like to tie nymphs mainly. I do a lot more nymph fishing. I've just gotten some hackles for doing some more dry fly stuff. I just dry flies. I know I could do it. It's not that hard, I would say. But there is definitely more of a balancing act to get the right proportions so that your fly floats.
Hmm.
Um, so probably sometime this winter I'll get the right type of dubbing, the super fine dubbing, so I can tie parachute atoms and some caddis, elk hair caddis, so I can have flies that will float. And that's always been my issue with like dry flies is it's not impossibly hard to do, but it's a little more of an exact science to get to tie something that's going to be effective so that it floats as far as staying on top of the water. And I'm trying to. I haven't fully divulged into streamers. Um, Eventually, I will. I tied a bunch of streamers for smallmouth and for bass, for smallmouth and muskie or slash pike for Wisconsin. But those are so much more imitations that they're super easy to do. Saltwater flies, though, I did do a box of those for going to Florida and Louisiana. So those are also fun. But I feel like a lot of streamers for salt, uh, they make them real simple. Like a Klezmer minnow is like probably the easiest fly to tie with like two or three materials.
Oh yeah. They keep it simple for the stupid out there. The- but no, the now I think it was cool because we were talking before about how again bringing the hunting and fishing back together that some guys that use animals that they harvest to tie their own flies. And I myself would like to get to that point at some point eventually. I want to first get a little more fly fishing experience under my belt before I do that. But I could see myself going down that path with tying flies and using stuff that I harvest to tie the flies with. Do you think
Yep.
that using more natural things like deer hair that you harvest or like feathers off a bird that you get are better in a sense to use for flies, or do you think that getting quote unquote natural colored stuff like dubbing and all that stuff works just as good sometimes?
It all depends on what you're tying, but I mean, definitely, I would say I think natural materials overall are a lot better than I like them a lot more than synthetics. I mean,
Hmm.
there's some things like for a patch rubber, like you're not going to be able to get away from tying like with chenille, but
Right.
yeah, there's a lot you can do as far as like using natural materials, but also like I haven't done it yet, but I do an old coffee grinder. Like you can brush your dog and make your own dubbing out of dog fur. Um, I've heard that if you do it and then grind it up in a coffee grinder, like if you have a lab, it should be some of the best dubbing material you can get for dry flies because labs have a natural oil
Oh wow.
in their fur. But then, like my dad has a friend in Oregon, and he's a big bird hunter. So like pretty much, I think it's around September. He converts his boat for salmon over to a duck hunting boat, and then but once a year I probably get probably a dozen or so duck wings from mailed to me from him.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, yeah, definitely being able to like source like materials that you can hunt yourself or materials that you can get from a hunter specifically is great. Some of it you have to do a little bit more work as far as kind of prepping it, which is a little bit I think different than prepping it for almost probably it's probably about the same for prepping it for making it ready to be like a rug or something or a
Hmm.
blanket as far as furs go. But then it's like there is a challenge as far as you don't want an entire deer sitting on your by your desk. So figuring out which sections you want.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I know a lot of guys. As far as I've heard, like if they use deer, they'll just take the tail and just kind of like clip pieces off of the tail and skin them out, unless they
Yep.
have like a special section that they want to use off the whole thing. But
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Do you have any bucket list trips? I mean, I know you said you've been to Alaska before. You've done some salt action. Do you have any like bucket list fish or trips you'd like to cross off?
I think if I had indisposable income for it, I do want to go to South America and chase golden dorado, and then make it up to Jurassic Lake and try to catch one of those monstrous rainbow trout that are in Jurassic Lake. Um, so South America definitely on my list. I think if I do it, I gotta have the opportunity to be able to do it. Spend a month or so down there, just
Oh, for
like
sure. Gotta
obviously
get
I
the full
think
experience.
yeah. I mean fishing. Tell my wife every trip's a fishing trip, so I always bring a rod with me. But even if I don't use it, there's I feel like if I don't bring it, there's always an opportunity for me to fish. When I do bring it, I don't have opportunities to fish, but one of the times when I have it with me, it'll work out well.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but going to South America, I think would be a great cultural experience for one. But then two, some of the fishing they have down there is pretty epic. And if I made it all the way up to Jurassic Lake, I could probably drop down onto the coastal side from there and probably get a chance to go chase some rooster fish, which would be pretty epic as well.
Oh yeah, from the beach on a fly with a get a rooster, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and some of them Dorado down there, and some of them big rainbows are just huge. I've seen pictures of them. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I just, yeah, going down there, I think it'd be a trip like none other. I mean, I do think there's, I guess, another trip I'd love to do would go to Mongolia and chase taimen. That just seems like it's a it's another salmonoid, but they get monstrous.
Okay.
I think they're referred to as the river wolf. Those
Hmm.
That trip would be it's pretty remote as far as where you're going. You're traveling in, I think, a couple days just to get to the river system, and it's just the middle of nowhere
Oh
um,
yeah.
where those rivers are for them. So that would be another one, but again, probably need time and indisposable funds.
Oh yeah. That's awesome, man. I tell people when I ask them that question, I say mine would either be going to catch some billfish in like Baja or one of those kind of areas, or maybe doing like Dorado or some kind of like surf fishing on one of those kind of beaches, like you said, for like roosters or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a draw to everyone wants to catch it. A tarpon that would be fun too.
Oh
You're
yeah.
definitely closer for a tarpon. I don't know if I need to chase the world class tarpon though. I think a small one would make me happy enough.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know some of those guys try to go catch like the biggest and baddest whatever on fly. I mean, that's all cool and everything, but like me personally, I mean, like, hey, if I can cross the species off and say I did it on fly, I mean, like, hey, kudos to
Yep.
me. I tricked in the best way possible and got some of the coolest, baddest fish. Might not be the
Right.
biggest, but I still got it done.
Yeah. That's when we were doing our cut slam a couple weeks ago. We weren't catching big fish. They were 2-3 inches. I mean, I think my
Hmm.
uh, Bonneville cutthroat was probably 2 inches. It was tiny.
Well, I don't know about you guys out your way, but I know, I mean, some of the brookies in PA and um, what's the other one? I think it's brookies. Or some of the smaller ones have some of the most popping, vibrant colors on them.
Yeah. Some of the brook trout I caught when we were up fishing at a Dubois just north of it. Uh, those brook trout were all fall colored up and they were super pretty. Yeah, brook trout are surprisingly stunning once they get into their spawning colors. They're
Oh yeah.
super vibrant and like very techno.
Hmm.
Speaking of techno, another bucket list fish for you would be going to I think they're in Italy. There's a strain of brown trout out of Italy, and they just have these gigantic red spots on their side.
Hmm.
I
That'd
think
be
they
cool.
I think people call them techno browns. Look it up. Like they look weird because it's just like huge red spots compared to what like a normal brown trout has, which would be a fun one if I ever go to Europe.
Oh yeah, that'd be a cool trip. You go fishing and then send the wife into like Milan or Rome to go shopping for a little bit while you're fishing.
Yep.
So yeah, go shopping. I'll be fishing. You know where to find me.
Right.
We'll meet up for dinner at some nice Italian restaurant somewhere.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. But I love asking one final question, and this is my favorite question I ask all my guests before we get ready to head out of here. And I'll let you throw some shameless plugs out to the people and where they can find you at. What is your why that keeps bringing you back for more in the outdoors and fishing? Like, what is that why that keeps that driving you?
um, I always tell my wife, fish don't like ugly places. Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, everywhere I go fishing, there's some sort of like I'd say beauty to the area. Even if I'm doing urban fishing, I mean, I don't have to do it too often, but I feel like you go to even like urban fishing, there's something that's kind of unique that these fish are thriving in basically in urban environments. There's a beauty to that. So I mean, I think yeah, just kind of being able to see and capture the beauty of where fish live and having a chance to step back from my daily job or doing or doing anything, just daily life stuff, having an opportunity to step back and take away from uh, my regular life to enjoy nature. You know,
Hmm.
so much of our days are spent either on a computer looking at a screen. I don't want to
Hmm.
get off this interview and go watch the Cubs game. That it's getting harder and harder to unplug.
Right.
And fishing gives that opportunity. And I also just get antsy when I'm stuck in the house too long.
Oh yeah. You start getting a little stir crazy. But I mean, to add on to your point of fishing takes you to some beautiful spots. I mean, think about just where you're located at as far as like Wyoming, Colorado, Idaho area. Like you could literally just go step in a river and be in a painting almost of
Yeah.
all the mountains and scenery you guys have out there. Like that's just I am really jealous and envious of that you guys have all that like mountains and cool like mountain beauty out there.
Yeah, it's fun. The guy I was fishing with, Gene, he stayed to continue on a float trip there, and they went and floated. They did a float, I think, on the Snake, and he's like, "I'm gonna go fish in front of the Teton National Forest today." So he had a huge backdrop of the Tetons. He's like,
Right.
"We didn't do it to catch a fish. I just always wanted to float it so I could have that backdrop of fishing."
Right.
Um,
Just say you were there in the Tetons fishing.
yep.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
I don't live that far east, but yeah, some of this or that far west rather. Some of the scenery, I would say, out near Jackson and by the Tetons is incredibly stunning as far as scenery. But like even by me, like there's still you know still pretty cool rock formations and stuff. I mean, like there's no place like your home waters, that's for sure too.
Oh yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the East Coast has its own little like special charm, and especially where I'm at, having all the cool back bays and seeing all the cuts and inlets and everything. But I mean, in my opinion, whether it be hunting, fishing, sightseeing in general, nothing's gonna beat that picturesque mountain landscape that you guys have. Because it's just like straight out of a painting almost or a book.
Yeah. And what do you hunt for out there?
I usually do waterfowl, deer. Um, I'm a big turkey hunter in the spring. We I know just north of us in Jersey is big bear hunting state, so I've been trying to get into that a little more this past couple of years.
Well, if you ever come to
So,
Wyoming, I can at least try to point you in the right direction.
oh yeah, for sure, man. And likewise, if you ever find yourself out east around where I'm at in Delaware or Maryland area, and you want to get on some blues or striper or anything like that, just hit me up, man. We'll make it happen.
Sweet, stripers are on my list.
Oh yeah, they're fun.
And is that true? They go into the river systems for their spawning too. You can catch them in
Hmm.
rivers.
Yep, they go in, so they come in and out of rivers to go spawn, and then usually people catch them off the beaches or inland, and then being like 2 to 3 miles offshore is like that
They
good
look like
food
a ton of
spot
fun.
for them. Oh, it's It's like your son, you reel and reel and reel, and all of a sudden you just feel this weight, and then you set it, and it's like a tank just takes off.
That's my one love of saltwater fishing. Whenever I've caught a fish saltwater fishing, like those fish pull so hard. It just
Hmm.
you know don't get that same kind of pull as far as like going. I mean, going for trout or whatever. I mean, they're fun in their own right for sure, but there's something about salts, and you're definitely lucky to have access to salt water right by you for sure.
Oh yeah, that is for sure, man. But before we head out of here, is there any place you'd like the people to holler at you at, see some more content if you have any?
I'm not too active on my Instagram, but let me find it real quick. What is it? Should be at Ian J McCreary. Is my Instagram handle. And I'm the Wyoming Trout Limited Council coordinator, so I help local chapters around the state with fundraising or just any other direct needs. And I help the council with their fundraising as well, doing conservation efforts across the state. One of our big things is trout in the classroom, where we try to get trout eggs into as many schools as possible
Hmm.
for the year. And then it's a big science project where kids get to raise trout from eggs to basically fry, and then they get to release them at the end of the year.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
but if you want to see any of the work I do, wyomingtu.org is probably where you'll see kind of all the stuff that I'm helping out and work with. And this summer's been just kind of a big planning for as far as kind of getting a good strategic plan to move forward. So I think there's going to be some big things coming from Wyoming to you here in the near future.
Awesome, man. Love to hear it, and hopefully I can see some of these great things to come. I can't wait to see it. Well, Mr. Ian, thank you, sir, for coming on the episode tonight. I appreciate the time and the
Well,
conversation. It was great. I definitely learned a lot. Um,
well,
we
thanks for
would love
having
to
me.
have. Oh yeah, I'd love to have you back on in the future at some point if you would like to come back on.
Yeah.
Um, and thank you again for everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Hen Outdoors Podcast. Thank you.